The main character of the story is an orphan boy named Ryo, and after a fever he discovered himself as a university student in Japan. But he was killed after the bus he was sitting on was hit by a train. Ryo is currently living with a bunch of gangsters in the slums, and his current goal is to avenge his deceased mother. A group of four women came to ask Ryo about a missing girl, and while the other two children treated him like trash, Celia spoke to him very gently. Since Ryo didn't know where the girl was, Celia used a spell to shut for magic power, and she was surprised to learn that Rio also possessed by a tremendous amount of magic power. But it seems Ada couldn't see his magic power. After Celia and her friends left there, Rio entered the house, and a mysterious person stabbed him, but accidentally stabbed the pocket of his shirt. Just as the assassin continued to attack, a girl suddenly appeared in front of him, and she taught him how to use his powerful magic power, so he easily hit him and defeated the assassin. All the gangsters who lived with Rio were killed by the assassin, and he found a little girl tied up inside their bag, but she instantly fainted when she saw it. Rio believed that this was the girl Celia's group was looking for, so he carried her to fight them. But her sister Christina gave him a slap because she thought he was the one who kidnapped her. So Christina in storage asked him to go back with them to explain everything. It turns out that Christina and her sister Flora are the princesses of this Belgium kingdom, and even though he was asked to take Rio's testimony properly, the knight Charles beat him brutally because he was shocked after letting Flora be arrested. Fortunately, Flora regained consciousness and let everyone know that Rio was the one who saved her. So Celia and the female bodyguard rushed into the prison to ask Charles to release him. Right after that, Celia used healing magic to heal Rio, and Rio was restored to his appearance and entered the palace to meet the king and the two princesses. Thanks to the rescue of the princess Flora, Rio was allowed by the king to attend the royal school, and Celia was the homeroom teacher of his class. Because he came from the slums, Rio was ridiculed by the children of the noble family as soon as he entered the classroom. And because he couldn't read the letters of this world, Celia had to give him extra lessons after school. But he learned extremely quickly because, after all, he was a university student in his previous life. During war training at school, Rio found on par with his teacher thanks to the techniques he learned from his grandfather in his previous life, and was invited by some of the nobles in his class when he was accepted by the teacher. Rio remembers that in his previous life he had a childhood best friend named Miharu, and even though he made a vow to get married after they were both grown up, she didn't expect her to be when she was in high school. She fell in love with another guy. Sometimes later, the noble students were amazed to see that Rio was the top of the school in the end of year exam, and they assumed that Rio had found some way to cheat in the exam. But Christina and Stella asked them to give evidence before convicting Rio. Despite being shunned by her friends often, Rio is still happy that Celia is always nice to him, and Celia also reveals that she is actually only 12 years old. Many years have passed since Rio started to enter the Royal Academy, and he now much taller than Celia. For all these years, the petite teacher hasn't changed a bit. The kingdom held a friendly battle between the students of the Royal Academy and the knights, and coincidentally, the one opposing Rio was the knight Charles. Because he was still bitter about the old story, Charles did not hesitate to use all his strength to fight Rio. But after a first battle, Rio easily won against him, and everyone was amazed that a student like him could defeat a professional knight. Charlie is currently in a regular contact with a magician from a neighboring country named Reese, and it seems that they are planning to take control of the entire kingdom. Flora was annoyed when everyone in the class looked down on Rio so often, but Christina thought that if she helped him, things would only get worse. Rio's class held a march through the jungle, and during that trip the noble students forced Rio to carry on their belongings. Rio's class got lost in a precipice, so they couldn't go any further, and didn't know which direction to go when a swarm of orcs attacked them. In the ensuing battle, because everything was so chaotic, and Noble Boy accidentally pushed Flora down to the cliff, but fortunately Rio used his twin magic to push Flora back up. Rio had fallen into the abyss, But he was unharmed, and the group of students had already defeated all the owls. Everyone questioned the boy who pushed Flora to the bottom of the cliff, and the boy and his friends blamed all on Rio. So Rio realized that he definitely couldn't stay in this kingdom any longer. A bull-headed monster suddenly appeared to attack all of the students, and they fell in panic because they were no match for this monster. But Flora was still there to heal one of the students injured. The monster quickly discovered Flora and attacked her, but fortunately Rio rushed out to save her, and thanks to his skillful technique and overwhelming physical strength, Rio was defeated. Rio quickly left the place before the Imperial army arrived, and all the monsters that the student group encountered were summoned by Reyes. Rio went to Celia's place to tell her everything and say goodbye to her, and Rio informed her that he was going to fight his parents' homeland. Rio had left Beltram Kingdom to head east, and he had stopped in a neighboring country to buy more food for the journey. Rio was surprised when the people here cooked dishes that only exist on the earth, and he went to the merchant guide there to buy some pasta to stock up. Continuing his journey, Rio discovered a fainting girl on the street, but she suddenly woke up to attack him, and he discovered that the assassin girl was a beast person. Even though the beast-skinned girl had a much stronger physical than a human, the beastman girl's speed still couldn't keep up with Rio's speed, so Rio easily defeated her. While fainting, the beast-skinned girl dreamed of her previous life, and she also died on the same bus that Rio sat on in her previous life. But after dying, she was reincarnated as an animal and was turned into a slave of the nobles. Knowing that this girl was being controlled by someone using a slave ring, Rio removed the collar to free her, and she said that the person who ordered her to hunt her close to Rio was the noble boy who put Flora down. The beast-skinned girl introduced herself as Latifa, and since he had nowhere to go right now, she begged to go with Rio. And the two of them went together to the unexplored eastern land. And during the overnight camping, Rio heard her mention Tokyo in her sleep. So Rio knew that she was also a Japanese who were reincarnated into this world like him. They had headed straight for the huge oak tree to continue, and while taking a break in the middle of the road, Rio encountered a group of demi-humans. Seeing that Rio didn't show any hospitality, the girl leader Sarah talked to him, but when they saw Latifa sleeping in the tent, they rushed to attack Rio because they thought that he had kidnapped a Persian. Rio alone couldn't resist all four, so he was quickly taken back to the demi-human village. And when Latifa regained consciousness, all misunderstandings were cleared up, so the village chef forced the demi-human girls to quickly apologize to him. The next day, Rio was invited by the village chef to the meeting with them, and they were very grateful to Rio because he protected one of their kind, Latifa. Right after that, Rio was met by a female tree spirit as well as a people's god named Dryas, and she discovered a humanoid spirit like her residing inside of Rio. They said that he was perfectly capable of using spirit arts. Rio and Latifa have been prepared by the village chef for a beautiful treehouse, and Sarah's group will also live here to protect them. In the time that followed, Rio learned spiritual arts and many other new things from the people of the village, and he was considered by the people here as an extremely important friend. In a place not far from the village, Reyes and one of his servants went to Dragon's cave, and he stole one of their eggs. So the dragons chased him to claim eggs again. Meanwhile, everyone had a party to celebrate Riz's 1 year anniversary with Latifa coming to their village, and the big-skinned girls were constantly clinging to Rio after drinking too much. Reyes and his servant carried the egg to lure the dragons away, and he would sneak into the dragon's den to steal one of their eggs. Reyes' retainer accidentally lured the dragons towards the demi-human village, so everyone had to cancel the party to fight them. The girls in Sarah's party tried to rush to fight the leader dragon, and while trying to lure the dragon away from the village, Latifa was attacked by it, but fortunately Rio appeared and showed up in time to rescue the little girl. Rio strengthened his body with spirit arts and burnt the leader dragon once, and he knocked the dragon down with a punch straight to the snout. So the other dragons quickly retreated after loss of the leader of the herd. The next day, Latifa was very sad when Rio decided to leave the village to continue searching for her parents' homeland, and she was surprised to learn that Rio's previous wife was also Japanese. Before leaving, the village elders gave Rio a bunch of cool items. But the most special thing was still an item with the ability to store unlimited objects called space-time storage. And after parting with everyone, he flew straight into the sky towards the land of Yagumo. 2 weeks after leaving the village, Rio found himself in the remote rural area in the land of Yagumo, and he was brought by a girl named Ruri to meet her grandmother, who is also the village chef here. Rio asked the village chef to help him find information about his parents, and in the following conversation, Rio learned that village head was his grandmother. After not seeing her son return to Yakumo for a long time, Rio's grandmother prepared two graves for his parents in advance, and she asked Rio to live in the village for a while. The next day, a friend of Ruri's named Seiyo went with her brother to Rio's house for breakfast, and Ruri discovered that Seiyo had begun to have feelings for Rio. Seiyo's brother named Shin led Rio into the forest to hunt with his group. He hunted a lot of prey, so the team leader praised Rio's archery skills over and over again, making Shin extremely jealous that he couldn't catch any prey. Rio has helped the people a lot while living here, and he is very popular with the girls in the village. A guy from the neighboring village named Gun came to Wero with Shin along with the youth in the village, and when he dared to look at Seiyo with a despicable look, Shin jumped into a duel with him, but he was quickly overcome by him until Ranma Rio came to disperse them. Gun and his juniors left out respect for Rio's grandma as the village chef, and Shin asked her permission to let Seiyo live with everyone else to keep her safe. The next day, a young tax collector named Hayate came to the village, and he asked to stay at their house while he worked there. One night, Gun along with his juniors sneaked into their house to mess with Ruri, but Rio stopped them and dragged Gun outside to punch him until Hayate ran out to stop him. Gun and his accomplice will be escorted to the capital by Hayate to be punished, and his grandmother asked him to take Rio to the capital with a letter to send to his father. A few days later, everyone went to the capital of Karasuki Kingdom together, and Seiyo had a fun outing with Rio in this metropolis. Hayate's father, Goki, was shocked after reading Mr. Rio's letter, and he quickly went to find Rio to talk to him. According to Goki, Rio's mother was the princess of the Karasuki Kingdom, and Rio's father was her bodyguard. So the two easily fell in love with each other. However, the war situation with the neighboring country was very tense at that time, and the other side demanded that the Karasuki kingdom hand over their princess to make peace. So the king and queen asked their parents. Rio has to leave the country far away. Goki took Rio to meet the king and queen of Karasuki, who were also his maternal grandparents, and Rio told them about his life before being thrown into the slums. Although his father died early, Rio's mother and son continued to live happily until one day his mother was murdered by a man named Lucius, and Rio told him that he would definitely avenge him. His mother and he had a chance to see him again. Rio also told the king and queen about his time in the academy, and the king asked Rio to try Goki to test his ability in the match that followed. Goki and Rio had a first world battle with spirit axe, but Rio still managed to defeat him with a waterbending attack. And everyone was surprised by Ryo's victory because Goki is the strongest warrior of Karasuki Kingdom. Ryo revealed his identity to Ruri because they were cousins after all. And when he found out that Ryo was the prince of Karasuki, Ruri fell to his knees in panic. But Ryo asked her just treat him normally like before. Ryo lived a peaceful life with everyone here for a long time, and after learning that he was planning to leave the village, Seiyo was very sad. Everyone in the village had a very busy harvest festival, and Seiyo took the opportunity to confess to Ryo and ask to go with him. But Ryo rejected Seiyo's feelings for him because his trip would be full of dangers. The next day, Rio said goodbye to his grandmother and Ruri to return to Beltram, and when he reached the village gate, Seiya was also waiting here to see him off. On the way, Rio returned to the demi-human village and visited Latifa with the others, and the village chef held a small party to welcome him and the demi-human girls were embarrassed. It's embarrassing because Rio has become a real man right now. The next day, Sarah was shocked when she saw a girl appear on Rio's bed, but they regained their composure when they learned that she was Rio's contracted spirit. The spirit girl was the same girl who gave Rio power at the beginning of the movie. But since she didn't have the name, Rio called her Alisa. Rio took Alicia to Miss Trias with elders of the village, and they were surprised to learn that Alicia was adept at all elemental magic. To verify that, Dryas suggested that Rio and Alicia have a duel, and the two of them had a landslide fight until Dryas asked them to stop. Rio and Alicia lived in the village for a while to practice more spirit arts, and Rio was built a mobile home by the Draven Elder to carry with him through space-time storage. The next day, Rio and Alicia parted ways with everyone in the village to go to Beltram, and he planned to return to school to visit Celia after 4 years not seeing each other. Upon entering Beltram's capital, Rio used a magic item given by him by the village chef to change his hair color, and he and Alicia brought into the school to find Celia. However, he accidentally learns that Celia won't go to school anymore because she is getting married, and her husband is a night chalist. As it turned out, Charlie's family had colluded with foreigners to gain full control of the kingdom, and Celia's father had to marry her to him to strengthen the marriage's political power. That night, Celia was sitting thoughtfully when Rio suddenly entered the room to meet her, and she was very happy to see her student again. Rio asked Celia if she really wanted to marry someone like Charles, and despite trying to act like she was fine, Rio knew that she didn't want to marry him. The next morning, Celia had been dressed up beautifully for her wedding, and Reyes was also invited by Charles to join the party. Due to the loss of control of the country, the Belgian royal family had to seek asylum abroad. But Princess Christina still attended Celia's wedding, and she was also very sad that Celia had to marry someone she did not love. Right after that, the entire population of the capital poured into the streets to witness Charles and Celia's wedding. And when she saw Rio standing in the crowd, she cried because she didn't want Rio to see her marry with the name Charles. However, Rio suddenly ran towards the carriage to everyone's surprise, and Charles ordered all the soldiers and the royal magicians to stop him, but he easily passed the solid defense of the royal army. Rio had crossed toward the carriage and punched Charles, and he suddenly pulled out a knife to take Celia hostage. But his real purpose was to put on a play to get Celia to escape with him after being persuaded by Rio for a while. Celia agreed to act with him in this play, and Rio carried Celia out of the seat of the royal army. Charles was so angry that before he could get married, his wife was stolen by Rio. So he ordered the royal commander Alfred to command all the troops in exchange for Rio. The entire Belgian capital's air force was mobilized to capture Rio, and after cutting off those air forces, Rio entrusted Celia to Alisa's protection, and he would be the bait to lure them away. Rio ran out of the fight with the full force of the royal army, and Alfred suddenly appeared to confront him. Despite being the strongest warrior in Belgium, Alfred is still unable to defeat Rio, and he felt extremely uncomfortable because it felt like Rio was going easy on him. So he used a fatal blow against him with the aim to blow Rio away. However, Rio used that attack to escape the capture of the royal army, and he quickly ran out of the city to meet Alicia and Celia again. Celia was overjoyed that she was finally out of her political marriage to Charles, and was thinking it was over when suddenly a flood of light appeared from the sky. Realizing they were the light that summoned heroes, Alisa told Rio to hurry up and rescue some of the summer people nearby. A slave trader captured the people who had just been summoned to this world. But Rio annihilated them all to rescue those people, and coincidentally, those people included his sister and his friend Miharu from his previous life. Thank you for watching all the videos. I will leave other videos of the channel here. And don't forget to press the subscribe button and the bell button to receive notifications when the channel releases new videos.